Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Memory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you our 2014 preseason FCS All-American team. Now, there's many players across the country that are worthy of being on this list, but only a few are able to make the cut as first team, second team, and third team All-Americans. But let's start this video off by taking a look at our first team All-Americans, starting with the quarterback position.
Eastern Washington quarterback Vernon Adams burst onto the scene last year and put together one of the most impressive seasons in college football. Adams threw 55 touchdown passes and accounted for over 5,500 yards of total offense while leading the Eagles deep into the playoffs, including an upset in Week 1 over Oregon State. Teams know what South Dakota State wants to do on offense, and yet they still can't stop running back Zach Zinner, who now has posted back-to-back 2,000-yard seasons, another season like the last two, and Zinner could own the FCS all-time rushing record. Don't let the size of Kashauda Spence fool you. The 5'10", 235-pound bruiser routinely ripped off long runs en route to a 1,600-yard season last year and showcases NFL-type ability. As a redshirt freshman, Eastern Washington's Cooper Kupp scored 2 touchdowns in the opener versus Oregon State and never looked back, scoring a whopping 21 touchdowns on 93 receptions and nearly 1,700 yards en route to becoming the 2013 Jerry Rice Award winner, which is given to the top FCS freshman in the country. The resurgent Fordham Rams boast one of the top quarterbacks in the country in Michael Niebridge, and he's thrown to a dynamic playmaker in Sam Ajala, who is the Rams' big-time playmaking threat, as he finished second in the nation in receiving yards with 1,646 and scored 14 touchdowns. Michael Pruitt out of Southern Illinois is an excellent move tight end. He's also a matchup nightmare and dangerous after the catch. Pruitt is the next in line of very good NFL tight end prospects coming out of the Missouri Valley Conference. Spencer Huston was an outstanding player last season for the Princeton Tigers. He was a big reason why the Tigers broke plenty of offensive Ivy League records in 2013, becoming Princeton's first All-Ivy first-team offensive lineman in 13 seasons. A road grader in every sense of the term, Clayton Truitt is a man-child on the inside and helped pave the way for a ground game that helped lead Charleston Southern to their best season since 2006. Max Holcomb out of Jacksonville State is a 4-year starter who dominates in the running game for the Gamecocks, and he never gives up on a play and is always blocking through the whistle. Offensive lineman Colin Siebert is a 2-time All-American as well as an all-conference performer whose athleticism is excellent and it allows him to excel in pass protection. Antoine Everett out of McNeese State can play both guard and tackle equally as effective and is one of the few offensive linemen in the country that's able to dominate in pass protection, which makes him a legit pro prospect. Eastern Illinois' Shepard Little waited 2 years for his opportunity to carry the football, and he definitely made the most of it last season by rushing for over 1,500 yards at 7.1 yards a carry and 15 touchdowns. He also averaged 23.5 yards per punt return, bringing 2 back for touchdowns. And here's a look at our second team FCS All-Americans. Quarterback Brian Bennett out of Southeastern Louisiana was a 3,000-yard passer and a 1,000-yard rusher last season, leading the Lions to their best season in program history. DeAndre Carter exemplifies what a threat is at the receiver position as he led the Sacramento State Hornets in receiving as well as scoring 14 touchdowns. Center Austin Gunn is another legit pro prospect coming out of the CAA and is part of a very good Spiders offensive line. And Quinn Epperly, quarterback at Princeton, makes our list as the all-purpose player because of what he did last year to opposing defenses. Almost Tim Tebow-esque in his dominance, Epperly threw 25 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions and also scored 18 rushing touchdowns, leading Princeton to his first Ivy League title in 7 years. Now let's move over to our defensive preseason All-American squad, and Chattanooga's defensive end Davis Toll was a football game plan preseason All-American last year, and he finds himself on our list once again. Toll led the Mocs in sacks last year with 9 and is also the school's all-time sack leader with 26.5. Defensive tackle Evan Kelly out of Richmond is a 2-time All-CAA performer and a constant nuisance up front for opposing offenses. Kelly terrorized opposing teams last year to the tune of 47 tackles, 9 TFLs, and 6 sacks. Troy Moore was extremely disruptive last year for Sacred Heart, averaging nearly 5 tackles a game and also finished the season with 8.5 sacks. William & Mary's defensive end Mike Riley can play anywhere he wants to on that defensive line. The 6'4", 265-pound senior totaled 13.5 TFLs and 11.5 sacks last year, earning consensus All-American honors. Norfolk State's Lyndon Trail is a big, athletic, outside linebacker defensive end hybrid that was a consensus All-American pick last year after posting 94 tackles, 8.5 sacks, and 2 interceptions. Trail spearheads a very talented Spartans defense that should be formidable once again this year in the MEAC. Coastal Carolina's Quinn Backus is a tackling machine, and he's the FCS active leader in both career total tackles with 314 and solo stops with 172. His athleticism and football IQ always puts him in position to make a play consistently. A starter since his true freshman season, Duquesne's linebacker Christian Kuntz makes his presence known each and every game. Last year, Kuntz terrorized quarterbacks, putting them on the ground 9 times, which led the team. Part of an impressive tandem at St. Francis, cornerback Lorenzo Jerome was tossed into action as a freshman and yielded one of the best seasons in the FCS by a cornerback, picking off 6 passes, which had him tied for 3rd in the country. Former JUCO transfer Avery Boykin of Mississippi Valley State was just the player the Delta Devils needed in the secondary, as he made an immediate impact, intercepting 6 passes en route to being named first-team All-SWAC and honorable mention All-American. Tennessee State's Daniel Fitzpatrick was an All-American last season and is a rare, strong safety with ball skills. Fitzpatrick led the FCS in intercepts last year with 8 and brought 3 back for touchdowns. Caleb Shafitzel was a football game plan All-American last year and held steady in 2013, doing a fabulous job eliminating mistakes on the back end for the Missouri State Bears. Now let's look at our second team defensive All-American, starting with Hampton's Miles Grooms, who's a pass rushing specialist with a variety of moves. Grooms finished 2013 with 18.5 TFLs and 9.5 sacks as a sophomore, earning him all MEAC honors. Jerome Howard out of Prairie View A&M is a seek and destroy type linebacker with excellent closing speed to the football, and he isn't awkward in coverage or in space and plays well on both ends of defense. I've never seen a freshman defensive back have an impact like the Stetson Hatters safety Donald Payne Jr. had last season. Payne filled up the stat sheet every week, averaging 10 tackles a game and 1.5 TFLs a game, and he was named 2013 Pioneer Defensive Player of the Year. And here's the rest of our second team defensive All-Americans. Keep an eye on Lamar's Joe Okafor, who's getting great coaching by defensive line coach Kerry Bailey and should become a consensus All-American performer by the end of the season. Jaquiski Tart was a preseason football game plan All-American last year and continued his playmaking skills for the Sanford Bulldogs last season. Now let's move over to our first team special team All-American, starting with main kicker Sean DeClue, who was a clutch performer last year for the Black Bears, connecting on 16 of 21 field goals. Punter Kyle Loomis out of Portland State was named the FCS Punter of the Year in 2013. Loomis led the nation, averaging 46.5 yards a punt, and this is after not playing football in 7 years since doing a stint in the U.S. Army. Loomis was also a consensus All-American. Kickoff returner Xavier Robeson is a 2-time All-Southland Conference performer and a big-time weapon as a returner for the Southeastern Louisiana Lions. And last season, Robeson averaged 35.2 yards per kickoff return and brought 3 back for touchdowns. And outside of being a very good cornerback for Robert Morris, Antoine Eddy is also an amazing punt returner, averaging an eye-popping 15 yards a return. Now here's our second team All-Americans for the special teams unit. Hampton's kicker Anthony Prevost, as a freshman, was a consensus All-American last season after going 17 of 19 on his field goal attempts and 13 touchbacks on kickoffs. Eric Anderson out of Delaware was one of the top punters in the country, averaging 45 yards a punt. Returning punts was the specialty of Adrian Wilkins out of North Carolina Central, who brought back 2 for touchdowns, averaging 13.4 yards a return. Wilkins also had 3 kickoff returns for touchdowns as well. Montana State's Sean Johnson averaged an insane 31 yards a kickoff return and brought 2 back to the house. And we're going to obviously need some coaches on this All-American squad, and the head coach for this team is Bo Baldwin out of Eastern Washington. He has always had his teams ready to play and compete at a high level, and having already won a national championship in 2010, Baldwin's Eagles are always in contention for not only Big Sky titles, but national championship. I have Andrew Briner out of Fordham as the offensive coordinator, one of the brightest minds. I have Andrew Briner out of Fordham as my offensive coordinator, one of the brightest young coaches in the country. Briner transformed the Rams into one of the most prolific and feared offenses in the country, producing 6 All-Patriot performers under his tutelage. Clint Brown out of South Dakota State gets the nod as the defensive coordinator. Brown's Jackrabbit defenses are usually the stingiest every year and some of the stoutest versus the run. In his 6th season as the Jackrabbits defensive coordinator, his units have always posted a top 20 ranking each and every season. And the recruiting coordinator will be Coach Kerry Bailey out of Lamar University. He is one of the top recruiters in the country regardless of division. His ability to connect with today's generation, along with his track record of success in developing players that eventually move on to play professionally, makes any high school player not only want to commit but sign with him as well.